was sort of sitting in my bed last night thinking about random stuff, and the idea for this video came to my mind. I have been finding myself really loving a lot of non-beauty things, and I hate trying to shoehorn them into my monthly favorites just because I always feel rushed and I want to talk about them more, and maybe you don't really care because you're there for the beauty part of it. So I wrote down a list of items that I wanted to talk about, and I thought I would just do a separate video talking about them. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I have is a coloring book, which is super random, I know. I'm somebody who isn't used to having a lot of free time, and I've had a lot of free time in the month of August, and I've also discovered that I have a really hard time when I'm at my house just watching TV or just watching a movie. I like to be doing something else. Normally I'm doing something either grad school related or teacher related, but I don't have anything going on right now. So I was in the Dollar Tree and I came across this Lisa Frank, yes, Lisa Frank coloring book, and I just was immediately brought back to my obsession as a child with Lisa Frank. And a few months ago, I had read a whole article about Lisa Frank and what she's been up to since the post Lisa Frank craze, which I don't think is over. But for $1, it has all of these really decent coloring pages in it. You can tell I've been really busy coloring these, channeling my inner child to its fullest. But it's just been really relaxing and enjoyable to do. I haven't colored in so long, and even though I know it's really childish, I have just been greatly enjoying it, and I've been enjoying the peace that comes with coloring. So big fan of this, and I may actually go pick up another one of the Lisa Frank coloring books that they had at the Dollar Tree because they had quite an assortment. So if you know somebody in your life who's a Lisa Frank fan, or you yourself want to feel nostalgic, go to Dollar Tree. They had tons and tons of coloring books, and for $1, it's not, you can't beat it. The other obsession that I have is with a candle. I was recently in Home Goods looking for the DW Halloween candles, which they didn't have at my Home Goods, and I ended up coming across this Woodwick. It's in the scent Midnight Apple. It was only $9.99, which is a little pricey for me compared to the DW candles, but oh my God, the scent of this. It reminds me of another scent, but I can't name it, but when I smell it, it's just so good. It's not an apple scent. I would not categorize this as an apple scent. In fact, if I hadn't actually smelled it, I probably would have passed it over altogether, but it's awesome. And I've also never used a Woodwick candle before, and it has a really soothing sound to it, a little bit of a crackle, but it's not super loud or super intense. So huge fan of this. I don't know a lot about Woodwick as a brand, but I don't know if it would be at your Home Goods, but if you come across it, give it a sniff because you might like it as much as me. Moving right along, another obsession I have had is with sweaty bands, which are these headbands that I am wearing right now. I bought a bunch of them recently on their website. They're not necessarily cheap. They're about $15 per headband. You're probably thinking, why? Why would you pay that for an athletic headband? But I stumbled on these, I think 2 years ago. Ben and I went to the Boston Marathon Expo that they have in this giant exhibition hall, and I came across these, and I like these because there is a velour velvety type of texture on the band, and I have found that this is the most conducive for my hair type. I have kind of a coarser type of hair, thick, all of the above, and the trend lately I've noticed, which drives me insane, is a lot of fitness headbands have what I view as a strip of hot glue or a couple of strips of hot glue on the bottom of the headband, and that does nothing. It does not stay in my hair, it does not hold, and I do not want my headbands, when I'm exercising especially, to move around or shift at all. It drives me insane, and these don't do that. Now, the ones I got 2 years ago were starting to get a little bit worn down. The elastic piece was no longer as formed as it used to be, so I figured it was time to go ahead and make another purchase, and I did. I made a purchase online. Like I said, they're kind of pricey, but they had a discount code and free shipping. My life. And so I picked a bunch up. I have a whole review video on these talking about them more in depth, but I've been loving them on these casual days where I'm not wearing a ton of makeup or not really doing a whole lot with my life. and especially when I'm working out. I cannot work out without these. They just do a really nice job holding my bangs back without me having to put a ton of bobby pins in. They're sweat proof. I've washed these before. Like, they're all around really, really awesome. I'll put their website down below if you want to buy from them, because they're not a super huge company. They're in some stores around town. Like, there were a bunch in Boston I could have gone to, but I figured they weren't gonna have the deals that the website had. So if you're in the market for a fitness headband, I'll give a review video soon for you guys to check out more in depth, but you can at least go to the website in the meantime. I've also been real obsessed with a water bottle. I have been looking for the perfect water bottle for a long time. I find that I drink a lot of water, but I don't drink as much as I ideally would like to, which is right around the 80-ounce mark per day. And I find that it's because of the water bottle, which sounds pretty ridiculous, but it's totally true. I really like this. It's from, I think Contigo is the brand name. I do not know what style it is, but it's kind of a quirky dispenser for the water. I don't like the ones with the straws that you have to bite on when the straws are like that hard plastic. I don't like that. And I don't like Nalgene's because even with a splash guard, it's still kind of messy. So what I love about this is, I'll show you close up. You have like a cap here and there's a little tiny ball. You push this red button to release the ball and then you can drink water. Love it. I absolutely love this. You can also attach it to anything like a backpack strap or, you know, it's like just a carabine type of buckle. And then it also has a lock on this side, so that way you won't leak in bags. You can tell that the button can't be pushed when it's locked. So it's really, really nice. I find that it holds 32 ounces, which I like that it's a decent amount of water that it can hold. It doesn't leak. It's really a solid bottle, and I'm really finding myself drinking a lot. And I think it's, again, because of how handy and user-friendly this particular bottle is. I found that randomly at a TJ Maxx. It was no more than $8. And I'm really pleased with it. I have thought about getting another one, but I haven't come across it since then. But I'm sure that they sell it on the Contigo website and what have you, but huge fan. Last like fitnessy kind of thing that I've been loving are these tank tops from Old Navy. I watched a video that Abby posted, Abby Esbenshade, my trainer, and she did a bunch of different like workout type of outfits that you can wear. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care about my outfits matching or that I look particularly decent when I'm working out because I'm working out. But she posted about, in that video, these sort of breathable, almost like a dry fit material mesh from Old Navy. And I picked one up. They look like this. They have different colored straps to coordinate with the tops. It's just labeled on here as the Old Navy Active Go Dry Semi-Fitted. They have a lot of tank tops labeled like that. I wish they would actually name these to make it easier, but I've picked up 3 of them. They are so nice. They're breathable. I don't find myself getting super hot in them the way I do the cotton Old Navy Active tank tops that I have a ton of. If I could switch over exclusively to just these, I would. They're also not super baggy or super tight. Again, that semi-fitted description probably would tell you that, but I really find that they are just cut nice, they fit well, and they are super breathable and comfortable. And I'm a girl who likes to be comfortable while working out, and I don't like things super form-fitted while I'm working out. So it just checks off all the boxes. It was super cheap. They are always doing some kind of sale on their athletic stuff. I don't think I've paid more than like $10 for one, and that to me is a really fair price for the amount of use I get out of that. Another favorite of mine is a movie that I think is pretty underrated right now. It's called Kubo and the Two Strings. It came out a couple of weeks ago. I think it came out like the second-ish week of August, and I had seen previews for it. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but it had really intrigued me. And it's a kid's movie. I brought Ben to it. We went to the drive-in and watched it, and both Ben and I liked it, which is very unusual. Ben doesn't normally like kids' movies the way I do. It's such a strange movie. When I describe it to people, they tell me it's super dark. It's essentially sort of like a folklore and coming-of-tale story with this small boy who's had a pretty rough, weird family history, and he has to kind of discover for himself how to navigate the world despite the problems of his family. It's really good. I wouldn't say it's a young kids movie. I'm talking like probably like say 8 and up, I think is the ideal audience for it, because it just deals with I think some more mature topics that are still very kid-friendly, but I don't think it would hold the attention span of a small kid who is more into just looking at fun things or not really following the storyline necessarily. I think it's definitely for those kids who can follow a storyline and can find that interesting. But it's a great movie. I really enjoyed it. I've thought about going back to theaters and seeing it a second time, just because I feel like I'd get even more out of it. I'm not sure. It's just, I think, is really underrated right now. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, and when I've mentioned the movie to them, they have not even heard of it. So I totally recommend it. It's really, really awesome, and I'm sure you can probably pull a better plot summary than I can give you in this short little, video, but definitely check it out if you're on the hunt for seeing some movies. I recommend that one. All right, the last two non-beauty favorites I have are books. Summer is my favorite time of year for book reading. I don't get to do it very often. As an English teacher, I'm constantly reading the books I'm teaching and making sure I'm up to date and all the stuff. Even though it's like my 5th year teaching it, I still need to read the material, which takes away from my ability to free read. But this summer, I read 2 books that I just want to talk about. And I just want to talk about them with you guys. The first one is Rum. This is by Emma Donoghue. Now, this is probably well known for the movie that came out a while ago. I actually, my first year of teaching, had a student read this as a free reading book and told me about it, and it sounded interesting, but I never got around to reading it. And then when the movie came out, I'm not somebody who has to read the book before seeing a movie. In fact, a lot of movies I've seen that are based on books, I saw the movie first and then read the book and loved that. I just love being able to find something and then see it in different formats, book, movie. I really enjoy that. So I watched the movie, and the movie I just couldn't. I remember vividly, Ben came home and I had been watching it, and I couldn't speak to him. I was just emotionally distraught, and he didn't know what was going on. It is such a horrifying and wonderful story all at the same time. It's about a woman, if you don't know, a woman who was abducted. It's not a true story, but it's about a woman who's abducted when she was 19, and she is kept in this little garden shed that her abductor has basically fitted into a 1-room type of apartment that you can just barely live in, and she ends up having a child with this man who's also raping her on a very frequent basis. And the story is told from the point of view of the child when he is 5 years old. His name is Jack, and it's in the movie it kind of touches on him being 5, and he narrates some parts, but it's not solely told from his perspective. The book, however, is solely told from his perspective, and it makes it both really challenging and also freaking awe-inspiring that this author could have written a book, 1, as a female, and 2, as an adult, writing from that perspective. I really appreciate that. But 2, it just really makes it challenging to read because you're constantly having to remind yourself that he's 5 and he doesn't know anything outside of this particular room that he's been locked in his entire life. And it's set on the premise of this mother trying to raise her son, but also find a way to help them escape from this world. But he doesn't know any different. He only knows what's inside those 4 walls. That, to me, I can't wrap my head around how ridiculously crazy that is. The content is really hard to read. It's raw, it's rough, but it's also really engaging. So if you're looking for, definitely not the happiest of books, but if you're looking for something that I think will challenge you, but also really give you an insight into a world you may not have any familiarity with, this is an awesome read. There's so much going on in it, listening to the mother's perspective and the boy's perspective. I just really enjoyed it. I had to put it down a lot because it is really emotionally taxing, but I also really appreciated it for that reason. So really enjoyed that. Another book that I had to pick up and read super fast was The Search for Truth and Justice After Serial, which is Adnan Story. If you're at all familiar with this court case, you know that Adnan Syed is a Muslim boy who in 2000 was convicted of murdering his ex-girlfriend, and he has been in jail ever since. But he has claimed his innocence the entire time, and Sarah Koenig created a whole podcast called Serial, just sort of looking from a journalist's perspective into whether or not he is innocent and whether or not the court system did him wrong. And I really enjoyed it. I definitely was really intrigued by the podcast, and I didn't fall into the the serial rabbit hole in a sense, where I wasn't listening to other podcasts that sprung from this. I wasn't reading a ton of articles when this came out. But when this book came out, I was really intrigued to read it because I felt like with the serial podcast, in the back of my head, I knew there is only so much that we can be presented through a podcast. There is also only so much she can talk about in a podcast. Like there's so much more information, I'm sure, that we are not getting either for or against the innocence of this particular person. And I'm also someone who likes to have visuals. You know, she was talking about locations of things and how they're, you know, how they could get from point A to point B and how long that would take. And I don't know, I wasn't gonna Google map it. I didn't necessarily care that much, but I appreciate this book because it includes certain types of just pictures and documents that I think are really helpful, and it just expands your understanding of the court case. It also has excerpts and letters written from Adnan, who wanted to be a part of the book but didn't want to fully write it himself. It's written by Rabia, who's the woman who's really always been advocating for Adnan to get his release, to get a retrial, all of that information. I can't decide, or I don't know if I feel confident and if I believe he's innocent or guilty. I think in the past few years, there's been a lot of scrutiny with the court system, and I think that we're seeing a lot of potential failures that happened, or at least trying to tie up loose ends when you can't necessarily tie up loose ends as efficiently as you want to, which is hard. And I feel terrible for the family of this girl who, you know, in their mind believes they have found the killer and believes that person has been convicted. But then there's all of this backlash now, and it's being brought up to the surface after, you know, 16 years. And I think that that makes this also really interesting. So if you're looking for a book that just expands more on the court case, yes, it is very clearly biased towards Adnan being innocent, and it gives a lot of that information. But I think it just provides more information that Serial just couldn't in the way it was presented. So I really enjoyed it. This book is dense, and there's tiny font in here, and I read this in a matter of 4 days. I was just honestly captivated, and if you were captivated by Serial, I think that the storytelling in here, it doesn't read like nonfiction, it reads more like fiction, which I really appreciate. I cannot stand dry nonfiction, but I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend it because it is really, really interesting, and it just provides you yet more information about the case, which I already find captivating. So those are all of my non-beauty favorites. If you guys want me to do these more often, I certainly can. I don't feel like I have this many necessarily. This has probably been 3 months worth of non-beauty favorites compiled into one. But if you like this type of video, let me know in the comments below, and I definitely will start keeping lists more often and filming them from time to time. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm going to film them every month because I don't think I would have enough content necessarily, but I did enjoy talking with you guys, and I love talking about books and Serial in particular. So if you guys have any comments on any of that stuff, let me know in the comments down below because I would love to chat about this. Ben has banned me from this topic because I've talked about it to death and he cannot stand it. Same thing with Making a Murderer. I talked that thing to death and now we can't talk about that anymore. So I just want to talk to more people about it. But that's it for me, and I'll talk to you in my next video. Bye.